if the field of professional Catholic youth ministry is going to progress, I really think we have to start rejecting some of the lies of Catholic youth ministry, some of the lies that we hear, and some of the lies that I've said before. One of these is that Catholic youth ministers are overworked. I used to say this all the time. Catholic youth ministers are overworked. I'm overworked. I used to participate in that kind of, suffering poker where, someone says, I worked 50 hours last week, and you say, well, I'll raise you. I worked 70 hours last week. And then someone else is like, oh, I worked 80 hours last week. And I haven't taken a day off since Benedict was Pope, right? This is a lie of Catholic youth ministry that we have to just reject. And it's something that we can fall into. It's a trap we can fall into. And I really think the problem is this: Catholic youth ministers have to stop blaming their problems on other people. I mean, just to be completely honest, I really think part of this is a problem of boundaries, of not being able to set healthy boundaries with yourself or with other people. And it's really easy for us to start blaming other people. My pastor doesn't understand. My coworkers don't understand. My parishioners don't understand. I'm work too much. I have too many responsibilities. I'm not getting paid enough. These are all excuses we can fall into as Catholic youth ministers. When we're professional, full-time Catholic youth ministers, we can fall into that frame of mind of victim mindset of just blaming other people for this situation. The good news is that it's all your fault. The good news is that it's your fault. And if it's not your fault that you're overworked and underpaid, if it really isn't your fault, but when I'm saying it's your fault, that means you can do something about it. If you can't say that it is your fault and it really is someone else's fault and there's nothing you can do about it, then you should quit. Then you should leave that situation if you don't like it, right? So one of the ways that I was able to overcome this and get a little healthier with the boundaries with myself and with other people in terms of being overworked or believing this lie of being overworked in youth ministry was to begin taking full, total, as Jocko Willink says, extreme responsibility for my time. The heart of this lie comes from an inability as a Catholic youth minister to set boundaries, first of all, with yourself, and second of all, with other people. So the first two things I talk to youth ministers about when they're saying that they're feeling overworked, that they feel like their pastor doesn't understand and they're just working too many hours a week, they're not getting days off. Two questions I ask right off the bat that have to do with setting personal boundaries with yourself. The first thing is, do you know at the beginning of every day what time you'll go home that day? So have you already set what time you're going to go home that day? And the second question is this: do you already know what 2 days you're going to take off this week? And I know that can be hard. It can be tempting when we have to set our own hours to just kind of go loosey-goosey with it. Well, I'll just work as much as I need to and then I'll go home. The problem is this thing called Parkinson's Law. Before I explain what Parkinson's Law is, Sheryl Sandberg was the COO of Facebook. I think she also worked at Google, a few other big companies in Silicon Valley, where the culture of these places was very similar to the culture of youth ministers. Work as many hours as possible, be overworked. If you're not overworked, you're not working hard enough. It's kind of bartering in this, I'll raise you the number of hours you've been working. I've definitely been working more. Otherwise, I'm not working hard enough. Sheryl Sandberg, for a long time, was quiet about a practice that she developed, a habit, a discipline very early on. She goes home every day at 5:30. She goes home every day at 5:30. And part of what I think made Sheryl successful, part of the reason I think that setting a time to go home early, even if you set your own hours, it's a little counterintuitive, but the reason I think that is success, that helps you be more efficient, is this idea called Parkinson's Law. And Parkinson's Law states that work expands so as to fill the amount of time you give it. So if you give yourself a month to write a talk, you'll take a month. If someone demands that you get a talk written, if you're about to go up in front of a group of the Knights of Columbus and they say, hey, you have 30 minutes to prepare your notes. I mean, you prepare your notes in 30 minutes, right? So we can use Parkinson's Law to put pressure on us to be more efficient, to cut out things that are taking up our time. I also like to call this the extra child rule, right? So when I had one kid, when my wife and I had one kid, we thought, oh my gosh, there's no way we could have enough time to have more than one kid. Then we had two kids and we thought, oh my gosh, there's no way we have enough time to have more than 2 kids. How do people do it? Then we had 3 kids, and we just thought, oh my gosh, there's no way we could have enough time. And your efficiency grows with the demands, right, that are placed on you. And sure, there are certain limits to that, but I really think in the moment, it's tempting for us to say, I can't imagine that I could be more efficient. I can't imagine that cutting down restrictions could help me be more efficient. So the first thing is setting boundaries with yourself, asking yourself, are you setting boundaries with your time, with your responsibilities? Second thing is taking ownership and setting boundaries with other people, right? Setting boundaries with our pastor, our coworkers, our staff. Highly recommend reading the book on boundaries by Henry Cloud. Dr. Henry Cloud. But setting clear boundaries with our pastors and our coworkers just means over communicating. A lot of times part of the problem is we're just not telling our pastor that we feel overworked, or we're not telling our pastor no. If our pastor asks us to stay an extra day, to put on a retreat, something to that effect, we don't know how exactly to say no. And sometimes it doesn't have to be just no. It could be, if I do that, I'm not going to be able to do this. Or if I do that, I'm going to have to give up one of these 2 things. Can you help me make that decision? So we don't, oftentimes as Catholic youth ministers, we don't know how to say no. We don't know how to over communicate, or we're failing to over communicate with our pastors and coworkers. This is all in setting boundaries with other people. We aren't willing to let things fail. So if we don't get enough volunteers, then we're going to put in the extra time. We're not going to just cancel a class or a retreat. And then the last and final thing comes back to this all being your fault. Setting healthy boundaries with other people means that we have to be willing, not just to say no, not just to let things fail, but sometimes we have to be willing to quit. And if we're not willing to quit when we're in a toxic work environment, when we're in a toxic relationship, then really it's our fault. Like really, we're the ones to blame for this bad situation. If it's bad enough of a situation, we can always walk away from the job. We can always look for another job. And you might be in a situation where you feel like you can't walk away from this job. But I would tell you this, like, even if you feel that part of your family life or your financial life is dependent upon this position or something to that effect, I really think in the short term, you might have financial security or some type of stability in your life. But really what you're sacrificing is an unhealthy relationship to boundaries with other people. And it's just going to set up these problems happening again and again. The truth is that youth ministers are not overworked. They overwork themselves. It's all your fault. It's all my fault. And the reason we overwork ourselves is because we have a hard time setting boundaries with ourselves. And we have a hard time setting boundaries with other people. Hey, my name is Evan Mitchell. And if you liked this, you will love our Catholic Youth Ministry podcast that we are ramping up to launch here soon. So if you could go to YouTube, search Catholic Youth Ministry Podcast. You can go to Instagram. If you're here right now, just go over to our channel and just subscribe there. Just follow us, give us a comment. You can also listen to us anywhere that podcasts are sold. So Spotify, Overcast. I'm sure DoorDash, you can listen to podcasts there probably. Maybe not. I don't know. iTunes, on Alexa. You can probably listen there too. Oh, and you can watch the Catholic Youth Ministry podcast on Facebook too by going over to our Facebook page, searching the longest name in the world for a podcast, Catholic Youth Ministry Podcast. We really want to help youth ministers raise the bar, especially youth ministers that are committed to long-term, full-time, professional, parish-based Catholic youth ministry. Youth ministers that are committed to that and committed to not just being about dodgeball and pizza, but about really taking their ministry and their missionary calling seriously and doing the best they can in that mission territory. We really want to help youth ministers like that raise the bar. So we hope you'd follow along and become part of this community of us just really trying to raise the bar for professional youth ministry.